A civic tech organization says it has uncovered more than 11,100 projects worth 6.93 trillion naira that it says were inserted into the 2025 national budget by the National Assembly. In an 18-page report, BudgIT said the development is a deeply entrenched culture of exploitation and abuse led by top-ranking members of the National Assembly. The figure represents 12.5% of the 54.99 trillion naira budget signed into law by President Bola Tinubu on February 28. Now, Labour Party leader Peter Obi has decried the news, calling it troubling and a confirmation of his long-held position that Nigeria has been turned into a crime scene. He says he's convinced that the uncovered figure represents only a fraction of the actual amount misappropriated.
Well, let's cross live to our Lagos studios and speak with the head of the tracker unit at BudgIT, Joshua Osiyemi. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight, Mr. Osiyemi.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for having me on the studio. Thank you.
Great. I think first we'd like to ask, how did you discover this project as insertions? And lawmakers have constitutional powers to modify budget estimates. They have been doing that for years. Some critics have dubbed it budget padding. What is different this time around with the 2025 budget with what you have discovered? Is it the scale, the secrecy, or the institutions that do not match the projects? What exactly are we dealing with?
All right, so all of these are all-encompassing. So you have mentioned how did we discover the anomalies in the projects. Initially, we recall that December 18, the president actually sent the appropriation bill, which was around 49.7 trillion at that time. Later on, we got an information that the budget has increased from that amount to 54.2 trillion. And then when the budget was eventually going to leave the National Assembly, we understood that it had already increased from that amount to 55 point something. So, and this is to tell you that something must have gone wrong along the line. Initially, the presidency came to say we got additional revenues from the ministry, the Customs Service, FIRS, and some other agencies of the GEOs, of GOEs of the government, government-owned enterprises and all of that. But finally, when the budget was assented to by the presidency, we got to understand that there were variances between what was sent to the National Assembly at the initial time and then what came out of this. And when we brought all of this together, we discovered that about 6.9 trillion was actually, and the real issue here is that, of course, you mentioned that the National Assembly has the appropriation power. Definitely, this is one of the exclusive rights that they have as the legislative arm of the country. So we really appreciate that. But the fact still remains that they are not meant to insert this project into the budget. It is not just right. The way they go about it is wrong. The types of projects that they are also fielding do not really align, do not in any way align with the developmental agenda of the country. And the budget is not a kind of document that you just treat anyhow, because it is like a compass that will determine the direction of the country in a whole fiscal year. So it is not something you can just be toiling with. As a matter of fact, the budget is about the second most important document in the country. When you take the Constitution, you want to believe that the budget is the next most important document for that country. And so this cannot continue. It has always been. So just like you also mentioned, this has always been the case. In 2020, 2022, 2023, 2024. In 2024, the National Assembly inserted projects worth about 7,447 projects into the budget that amounted to 2.4 trillion naira. And this year again, we have also uncovered the fact that 11,122 of these projects have also been inserted into the budget, which amounted to 6.9 trillion naira.
Right. If I may
continue like this, you can imagine that this is going on a geometric rate. Yeah. Let me listen to you.
Mr. Osiyemi, like you said, I mean, this has been going on for quite a while now, as far as the National Assembly and Executive is concerned. But tell us more about your findings in this report, where this 6.9, trillion naira has been directed into. I mean, is this budget padding? Because you call it insertion. Is it budget padding that you have discovered in the course of your investigations? Exactly. And to where specifically were you able to track where those funds, are directed to?
Yeah, so I know that you also mentioned in the course of this introduction that we released this 18-page document that is available for the public to download on our website, BudgIT.org. So there you have all the projects there. You have projects on street lights, you have projects on roads, you have projects on traditional palaces, projects that will really not be in any way bring development to the country, So we have all of these projects scattered all across different sectors of the economy, So we have about 1,000 plus project on street light that is about about 347 billion naira. We have projects, ICT projects. We have school projects, some provision of items to students, some construction of classrooms, some renovations, and all of that. But what we're just trying to establish here is that while you try to do this, you don't do this without the consent of the executive arm of the government. It is, of course, if you want to call it padding, you can, but these were not items that were originally part of what was submitted to the National Assembly. And when the budget was leaving the National Assembly, we discovered that this had been added to it. So whatever language you want to call it, but we know that something extra has been inserted to the 49.7 trillion budget that was submitted to the National Assembly.
Ask you, because I'm glad you mentioned the projects, because I've read through your press statement. You call them irrelevant, such as and politically motivated, street lights, ICT hubs, and boreholes. What counts as irrelevant? Are you saying that these projects, there are not any locality that might need them, such as street lights and boreholes and ICT hubs? But more curiously for me was the appropriation to some disjointed, if I can use that word, ministries, departments, and agencies. For instance, the Ministry of Agriculture being the one to carry out some of this project, they make a lot of sense to me. Is this something you've seen before? And do these MDAs, when they get such allocations, do they push back or do they carry out this project and return kickbacks? What usually happens?
All right, so I love the questions. So the first one is about the relevance of the project. So you talk about street lights. So I want to inform you that the National Assembly gets a cut of 100 billion naira every year from the national budget. You understand? So, and this is always going into constituency projects that is splitted within the 469 NASS members. So this has been on since 1999, and if you want to do your calculation very well, you will understand that by last year, they have already spent about 2.5 trillion naira on this. So that is expected to go into different constituencies to address different developmental issues that the constituencies might be needing. Of course, these are also given to individual senators or honorables based on their positions in the National Assembly, but that's not even where I'm going. All right, so now the relevance of this project is also important, but I must also mention to you that capital project is what we have called this, and they are meant to be meaningful projects that should affect the lives of Nigerians generally. These are not projects that should be targeted at few individuals who are maybe political jobbers, who are maybe loyalists to the people who are actually going to be bringing out this. And you also mentioned the fact that the relevance of the MDAs that are also in charge of this project. Sincerely speaking, if you look through the budget yourself, you will know that most of these agencies do not have the capacity to do most of these projects. Do you want to talk about a federal cooperative college in Ibadan that is going to be executing a project in Bayelsa? What capacity do you have to move their staff from Ibadan down to Bayelsa to go and supervise a project? Are you talking about Federal Cooperative College or G-River in the remote village of Enugu that is having a project to supervise in Katsina? How do they want to go about that? And we're not even talking about distance now. Let's talk about the capacity and the capabilities of these agencies.
Yeah. Very quickly, Osiyemi,
you will discover that they don't even have the technical know-how and the manpower to carry out all these projects that are ceded to them.
Very well made point. But very quickly, in your report, did you come up with any recommendations, any key recommendations that government really has to address, especially the procurement process, for example? Any recommendations that you came up with? So
there are several recommendations in the report. One of which is the fact that the presidency itself must be very assertive. The presidency must be able to stand its ground to push back on some of these anomalies that are happening. I sent so X amount to you. I am getting XY. What is happening? So you must be able to sit on a round table to be able to dialogue on how the federal lawmakers will be able to bring in their own budget with the consent of the presidency. That's one. Then the second part of it is one thing that you have also mentioned, which is about the appropriation powers of the National Assembly. I, for one, believe that I can't be a judge over my own case. So I can't be one that will be overseeing a particular sector of the government and still be having a stake in that same government. So it doesn't work that way. So the law has to be well spelled out. We have to know the judiciary has to come, maybe at the highest level now, has to come out clean on where does the power of the legislature actually stop as regards the power of appropriation that we're talking about. Then another one is the fact that the anti-graft agency have to be able to nip all of this in the bud. We have made quite a number of revelations about some of the things that we have seen so far. In last year's trackers report, you will discover that more than 2-point-something trillion worth of projects were either abandoned or were not even done at all, despite the fact that disbursements were made to them. So, and we submitted this report to the anti-graft agency, the foremost part of them, EFCC, ICPC. No, they should be able to do something about all of this.
Great work you're doing at BudgIT. Thank you very much for joining us on Newsnight. Joshua Osiyemi is head tracker at BudgIT. Thank you very much for joining us.